You can share the money, one person. You can share the money.
Police in upstate New York were caught on hidden camera stealing $6,000 from a woman's closet. So in this video, I will show you that video. I will also go over, of course, the details of this story, and also near the end of this video, I will discuss just how common this is and who the targets tend to be. So let's start here with the clip. So this is hidden camera that was a phone activated by Shannon Carpenter. This is her money that was stolen. This is her bedroom. They are in here because her boyfriend was on parole after serving prison time for criminal possession of a weapon. The officer on the right is parole officer Doris Hernandez. Then on the left is on the left, Doris Hernandez. On the right, we don't know who this is. They're unidentified, likely because their face is not clear in the video, so maybe there was no reason to have to identify them. But for whatever reason, he's still unidentified. And this happened on November 16th. There was a knock on the door out on their Greece, New York home shortly after 8 a.m. Outside were 6 officers from the State Division of Parole who announced they were there to search the house. 4 officers entered, and when they made their way to the bedroom, Carpenter switched on her hidden camera. So let's watch this. A lot of what is being said here is inaudible. They are whispering clearly throughout the video, but then there is a very clear moment where the officer on the right here speaks up, and you're going to see the captions. It's very clear what he's saying, but let's watch this.
Don't worry, you can share the money, one person.
We can share the money.
As long as there's enough money to go around.
I think it's a couple of
So the rest of it, you can't really hear what they're saying, but I'll keep it going as I talk over it here. So they're in this room. The officer passes, you saw at the beginning, passes his phone to the other officer there, likely writing a message maybe about the money. And then he just says verbally, we can share the money. Now, I'm going to get to the potential fallout here, and understand this likely happens all the time. But because there is no hidden camera, who is the state going to believe? Are they going to believe the officers, or are they going to believe a random person who had their money stolen? And I'll get to how common, as I said, how common this is. So first here, it's important to point out that Carpenter filed a complaint with the state police. I'll get to more details around that in a second here. But Shannon Carpenter, her reaction here, quote, "It's hard because it was right before the holidays. I dip into that when it's time for rent or something like that, and now I have nothing." Now, you may be thinking this is over $6,000. Like, what's the big deal in the grand scheme of things? For Carpenter, clearly it's a massive deal. $6,000 is a lot of money for the vast majority of people. But also, this is why this story is so important to highlight, because this tends to be the target of the police. People that simply can't afford to fight back if they have anything stolen. So $6,000, is that going to even pay for the lawyer in a case like this? Unlikely. Which is why you have this constant hounding of people who are, middle to lower class, don't have a lot, and they can take, 100, 200, 1,000 at a time. And that's how a lot of these cops tend to operate. And again, I'll get to how common this is, because this is not just a random occurrence. This happens quite a bit. But in this case, so Hernandez, again, the officer that was on the left there, has since been suspended with pay, according to the state's Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, which oversees the parole division. Thomas Maley, a spokesperson for the agency, did not give a reason for Hernandez's leave and did not respond to a question sent via email of whether the unidentified male officer had been suspended. So to be clear, this is from the Rochester City newspaper. In a phone interview, Penn Berthy is the lawyer for Shannon Carpenter. In a phone interview, Penn Berthy said she believed Carpenter's story is not an isolated isolated one, but rather a common occurrence which is difficult to prove. Penberthy is primarily a defense attorney, but has also filed several civil rights cases against the Buffalo Police Department. Quote, the crazy thing is you hear these complaints all the time from parolees, from loved ones of parolees, that a parole officer did X, Y, or Z, Penberthy said. And the immediate rebuttal from any agency or what have you is, oh, don't believe the parolee, we believe our parole officers. Of course. There's bad people in the world, she continued, and just because they sit at a desk for parole doesn't mean they're the good guys. Now, how common is this? This is from 2015, but this trend has continued since. Law enforcement took more stuff from people than burglars did last year. This has been apparently the case, according to reports, since 2014. So they go on to write here, in the U.S. in 2014, more cash and property transferred hands via civil asset forfeiture than via burglary. The total value of asset forfeitures was more than 1/3 of the total value of property stolen by criminals in 2014. That represents something of a sea change in the way police do business, and is prompting plenty of scrutiny of the practice. And I'm not even sure if this case would fall under civil asset forfeiture, since the money wasn't even the parolees. It was his girlfriend's. So think of all the cases that fall outside of this, limited definition here that would also add to this figure. And as I said, it's continued. So the nonprofit Institute for Justice has just released the third edition. This is a report from 2020. Third edition of its Policing for Profit report, examining the abuses of civil asset forfeiture by local police across the U.S. According to their data, local police departments have seized more than $68 billion worth of personal property without due process over the last 20 years. In fact, since 2014, police have been stealing more than actual burglars, and most of that came from people who hadn't been convicted of a crime. They go on to write here, despite the billions generated, our data indicates the typical individual cash forfeiture is relatively small, only a few hundred or a few $1,000s. This suggests that aside from a few high-profile cases, forfeiture often does not target drug kingpins or big-time financial fraudsters. More than that, the data show why it often makes little economic sense for property owners to fight. The cost of hiring an attorney, a virtual necessity in navigating complex civil forfeiture processes, where there is generally no right to counsel, often outweighs the value of seized property. Again, as I pointed out earlier, going to why they target these people specifically. Now, I'll link to all this below the video. This is the Policing for Profit report that they are referring to there. But there's even more here. So police say seizing property without trial helps keep crime down. Of course, BS. A new study shows they're wrong. I was considering swearing there, but the YouTube algorithm doesn't like that. So on this is amazing. So civil forfeiture is often used to target ordinary people, stop for minor infractions like traffic violations where police purport to have a basis to suspect the money is connected to some kind of criminal act. Police officers have seized people's cars after finding a small amount of marijuana, or when a drug-sniffing dog indicated that drugs were once present in a car. Police sometimes target family homes too. In 2013, ProPublica reported on how prosecutors in Philadelphia sought to seize the houses of often lower-income residents simply because a child or other relative had sold small amounts of drugs while living there. Some of those families spent years in court fighting to save their homes. And they say here the city has since reformed its civil forfeiture system after the Institute for Justice lawyers filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of city residents. So it's good to see there are groups out there fighting for these people that are being screwed by the system. But look, a lot of people want to say, I don't know how many people, but there's definitely at least maybe half of people trying to blame defund the police for society's ills. Yet here you have the police defunding society. On both ends, mind you. So on one end, yeah, asset forfeiture, a major issue. On the other, sucking up resources that could be going to public health, mental health, public housing, infrastructure, education. How is defund the police the problem here? Now, look, I'm not going to get into the whole debate now over defund the police, but just to point out how stupid that argument is when you have police taking more than burglars do over the course of a year. since 2014. And this is just another example of that.